Business, Stevens here on set. We're going to start with Greece today. More tough talks over its bailout ahead, Stephen.
That's right. The bailout inspectors are going back to Athens to finish their review of the country's progress in implementing reforms. That is a sign of progress overall, though, made in the talks by eurozone finance ministers in Brussels on Monday. The Greek government has been struggling to convince its creditors that its proposals to overhaul the pension system, among other reforms, go far enough. Now, passing this milestone of this review is seen as critical to beginning any talks over the controversial issue of debt relief for Greece. Speaking after the meeting, the country's finance minister was upbeat.
We had a very good meeting. The institutions have agreed to come back. The IMF has also agreed to come back, despite certain differences. So we look forward to discussions and closing in a timely manner the first review and having a discussion on debt. And I'm sure that sensible people, when they get across the table, will find a sensible conclusion. Thank you very much.
Greece's finance minister there. There was some better news, though, wasn't there, Stephen, for Cyprus at this meeting?
That's right. The country confirmed that it's leaving its bailout programme early. Now, Cyprus was forced into a €10 billion bailout 3 years ago as its banking sector was on the brink of collapse. It's exiting the programme, having just taken $7.5 billion of those loans. The 2013 rescue plan represented one of the lowest points in the eurozone crisis, where a plan that tried to force losses onto small bank depositors had to be scrapped. The head of the Eurogroup of finance ministers, Jeroen Dijsselbloem, praised the speed of the turnaround in Cyprus.
There is still one prior action outstanding, but overall the Cypriot authorities have delivered a very, very good job. Cyprus can now fund itself, and many of the fiscal, financial and structural reforms undertaken have put Cyprus back on a path of sustainable growth.
Things also looking up. This time it's for Japan.
Well, it's fair to say that things are perhaps less bad than we had thought in Japan. These are revised growth figures for the last 3 months of 2015, and they show that the economy shrank by 0.3% and not 0.4%, as we previously thought. The data for the start of the year hasn't been very encouraging, though, with a fall in consumer spending, among others.
So how's all that new news that's been coming in playing out on the market, Stephen?
Japanese shares not too impressed by that revision of growth figures. Not very much optimism on the Nikkei, which closed down by 0.75%. We're seeing falls in Chinese shares today as well. That's after new figures showing that exports from China slumped in February at their fastest rate in 7 years. Falls there in Hong Kong and in Shanghai as well. We're also keeping an eye on the price of oil today, which climbed back over $40 a barrel in trading on Monday. The Brent crude benchmark for oil down in trading today, as you can see, but still over that $40 mark. When you consider that oil was $28 a barrel back in January, it's a pretty big climb.
Now, here in France, the country is bracing itself for strikes and protests tomorrow. This is over changes to employment law.
There was little progress in talks on Monday between unions and the government. The proposed bill will make it easier for struggling companies to fire workers, but that's causing, perhaps unsurprisingly, opposition from unions. Train services across France face disruption tomorrow, while the main students' unions have called for a massed demonstration. Clement Bonnereau has more.
Smiling faces around the negotiating table, but tensions quickly erupted. Union leaders said concessions offered by the government were not enough to make the proposed reforms to France's tough labour code palatable.
Why won't the government listen to us? We're representatives of workers and young people. That's what dialogue should be about. When something's not working, we stop and start again from scratch. That's what we want. This isn't a dead end.
Most unions are now pressing the government to scrap the bill altogether. Only the more moderate CFDT said it's willing to negotiate, but its leader insisted he expects the government to make substantial changes.
We have been heard. The government said they remained open to dialogue and admitted things could be improved, though they didn't give us any concrete details. We also said that without substantial improvements, we won't support the bill.
The government pledged on Sunday to make improvements to the text, hoping to secure the support of at least the CFDT. The Labour minister said she remains optimistic.
Our debate was frank, direct, constructive, with unanimous agreement that our country must be able to reform.
The government said it was open to compromise on its proposals to cap payouts for employees found to be unfairly dismissed, as well as the threshold for declaring a company in financial trouble and allowing it to cut staff, and even consider adjusting reforms to the long-protected 35-hour working week. The unions, however, argue those concessions don't go far enough. They've called for public strikes and protests on Wednesday.
And finally from Stephen, is the story of a band who chose to shun Spotify. Now this in order to actually boost their album sales.
This is a tactic that we've seen from some of the biggest names in the music industry. Adele, Taylor Swift have both done it, but it's a gamble for less established acts. But the British band, the 1975, decided to delay the launch of their album, which is called I Like It When You Sleep, or For You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It. It's quite difficult to say as well.
It is.
So they didn't release the album on Spotify for 2 weeks in order to boost sales of the record itself. They did allow it to be streamed elsewhere, but because Spotify is the biggest player in the market, 75 million users globally, it was a big deal they hadn't decided to do that. It seems to have worked for them. They sold 98,000 records in the US. They've topped the Billboard charts. They're also top of the charts in Britain, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. But it's a bit of a gamble for them, as I say, to decide not to go on Spotify, but it seems to be working.
And they always sing in a box.
Well, on this occasion, for
on
special
this occasion
occasions.
at least. Okay, thanks a lot, Stephen. Stephen with Business here on France 24.